Okay, so we finally made it. This is the last video in the garage renovation series where we took a basic detached garage in our backyard and turned it into an awesome workspace for ourselves. So in this final video, we're gonna put all the finishing touches on this space. Like if you're wondering what this thing is behind me, we're gonna go through that too. But I'll plan to see you here at the end of the video to wrap things up. And until then, enjoy. So to get things started, we want to take advantage of this speaker wire that was actually run throughout this building when we bought it. I would really like to be able to say that I did some sort of testing to validate that all of the wire was connected properly before I did all of this install, but I was kind of living on a prayer with this thing. The speakers that you see here are just some cheap speakers that I found on Amazon. I think they're called like dual audio or something, kind of generic. Either way, I figured I didn't really need anything that high quality. I just wanted to be able to have some sort of system that I could play audio through when I'm using the space. I installed those banana plug receptacles, which would allow for a little bit of a cleaner install, then installed the brackets that you see here, and then mounted the speakers to the brackets. Then I just had to repeat that process 3 more times. With all these installed, I then had a lot of speakers, but only one small underpowered Bluetooth amplifier to power them all. So I was really hoping that this would still do the trick, even though it wasn't meant for this many speakers. But what I did was I found this hub that I could use to connect a single Bluetooth amplifier to connect to all these different speakers. And then once I mounted it to the wall, I just used an old TV to cover it up while also allowing me to have this to watch anything in the back building. Then we had to turn our attention to covering up this electrical panel that was kind of awkwardly in the middle of the space. So I had a few of these old ski posters that I'll get on one of these tries. There you go, John. Where we mounted these to the wall to make sure that I could cover this up. And then I had another one that I mounted to the other wall so it looked symmetrical. Now, it's probably a good time to mention I have little interior design expertise or good taste. I just thought these looked good on these big empty walls. Because I still had so much wall space that was going unused, I thought some floating shelves might look nice next to the work surfaces that I had set up. Now I know what you're gonna say, this is YouTube. You expect people to make their own shelving and their own cabinets, but to be completely honest with you, I simply did not want to spend the time learning how to build floating shelves when IKEA had some perfectly good options that were finally shipping to our area. So I first started by marking all of the mounting holes for the bracket for these shelves along with the edge of the shelves themselves and put that onto a piece of painter's tape. I could then use that to mark all the holes that I was going to place on the wall along with a laser level so I could actually put all of these floating shelves end to end to make it look like one huge floating shelf right above my work surfaces. For those of you who didn't see the first video in this series, this is the power of having OSB behind all of the drywall that you have here. Now, I didn't install the OSB myself, it just came with the building when we bought it. But by having that behind all the drywall, you don't have to use a stud finder to mount these things, and they can still hold a pretty decent amount of weight. Next, I had to think about something that I could mount on the wall that was across from the garage door that kind of served as a focal point of the space right as you walked in. And while I don't have any artwork to put on the walls, I do have a lot of tools, so I figured out this might be a fun way to test a new kind of elevated pegboard design that I was thinking about as I put the space together. So like every good makerspace, we start with some good IKEA pegboard. I got 3 of these that I was going to put end to end to create one large pegboard on this big empty wall. Again, with the OSB behind the drywall, I could mount these wherever I wanted to. I just did it based on what I thought looked good. Once I confirmed that the placement looked decent, I then took all the pegboard down and started to install some of these lights that are actually meant to go above cabinets that we actually just had lying around in our house and were going unused. The idea here was that these lights would make this feel a little bit more dramatic and almost a little bit more like a piece of art rather than just some random pegboard on the wall. I then had to think about wire management and where I was going to place this switch on the back of all this pegboard. To manage the wire coming up from the outlet, I just used a little bit of this leftover wiring track from a previous project where I renovated our pantry by adding LED lighting to it. Then I attached one of the panels and actually just hot glued the switch to the back of it, so it's really easy to turn on and off. I could then use these 3M zip ties to keep all of the cables in place and keep it from hanging below the panels. Once all of the mess of wires was handled behind the pegboard, I think they hid the wires pretty nicely. And then I could turn my focus to actually putting some items on the pegboard to hold a whole slew of different tools and things that I use on a day-to-day basis. Once everything was thrown on the pegboard, you can get an idea of how this thing looks at night, and I think it turned out pretty cool. Now I had to think about what I was going to do with this empty corner where I hung those pictures. Something I know about myself is that if I don't have the opportunity to move around and exercise throughout the day, I cannot focus. So I wanted to dedicate this corner to some workout equipment that I could just periodically use throughout the day to stay focused. And no joke, guys, these rubber mats were the hardest thing to move into the space, not because they were super heavy, but because they were also super awkward to carry around. These mats specifically are actually from a Tractor Supply store down the street that I think are actually used for horse stalls or something. Once these godforsaken mats were in place, I could finally start assembling my squat rack. In my case, I got the Titan T2 squat rack because I don't really do that much weight and I just needed something that was relatively affordable, and I thought this was a great option based on the reviews. I'll make sure to throw the link in the description if anyone's interested. Putting this thing together was pretty easy, you just need a few basic tools. Once the squat rack was assembled, it fit pretty nicely on two of these stall mats that I found, and I was able to put all the finishing touches in place. Combining the squat rack that has the pull-up bar along with some adjustable rep dumbbells, and I feel like I have a pretty complete system here to work out throughout the day. Next, I knew I wanted to update the light fixtures that were flanking the new garage door. Now, this new garage door was black instead of white, so it kind of clashed with the rest of the building. So I think by adding a few other black accents, it kind of helps to tie together the place. I also wanted the space to feel a little bit more homely, so I ended up getting this indoor-outdoor rug off of Amazon that actually turned out to be less expensive than most of the used rugs that I could find on Facebook Marketplace. And by using an indoor-outdoor rug in this space, it'll be nice because it's super easy to clean, given I'm tracking a lot of dirt and dust into the space with my shoes. I've been really happy with the Sputnik style light fixtures that I installed in a previous video, but I knew I also wanted to create some more layered lighting, especially when it's in the darker months and I want it to be a bit of a cozier vibe. So I got a few of these cheap IKEA light fixtures that I can place throughout the space, especially in these work surfaces. And last but not least, I was able to find a fun and funky Hayworth office chair that I can use to break up where I'm sitting throughout the day. I was pretty pumped about this find. So now let's take a look at where we started. This was a great garage space, but it just wasn't finished. It wasn't going to serve the purpose that I needed. It was pretty basic, and it's just where a lot of my stuff went to collect dust. So with that in mind, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce our new workspace. I can truly say that we've turned this garage into a space that really makes me feel inspired. We have our very bougie tool storage. We have our custom-built island with all of our small part storage we'd ever need and tons of room for activities. We have a dedicated area to work out in to stay focused and energized throughout the day that's right next to our prototyping station. We have an area with an overhead camera to capture our creative process. And while this is a big open space, the desk configuration still makes it feel cozy. And I can actually practice other interests of mine without driving my wife absolutely crazy. And on a serious note, I cannot tell you how lucky I feel to have had the chance to build out this space. I honestly never thought I would have the opportunity to have my very own space like this where I could be creative and try new ideas. Not only that, but it also serves as a fantastic place to turn my mind off and just kind of unwind. But the absolute best use of this space is when I get to share it with others, whether it be coming up with ideas with friends or even introducing my son to all the different things that you can build if you have the right know-how. I am so excited about what the future of this space holds. So you guys, that's gonna do it. We have successfully renovated our back detached garage and I think turned it into something truly special. Now, is everything perfect in here? Absolutely not. We still have so many more things that we can do to this space, like acoustic treatment, closed storage, things like that are all things that I think are going to be necessary in time, but at least we now have a space where it makes it so much easier to work on fun projects that I can share with you. So with that in mind, if you haven't already, consider liking and subscribing to the channel because we have so many more projects to work on and I want to take as many people along for the ride as I possibly can. So until the next one, thanks for watching.